So I'm going to do a quick little walkthrough of how I do these stupid sound mods. I don't really think anybody gives a shit. This is going to mainly be for vehicles this time around, but this can apply to weapons, really any entity. In this case, it's going to be for a truck this time around. So what you're going to want is a DAW of some kind, whether that be FL Studio, Audacity. I'm not too sure why you'd want to do an Audacity, but you know, people prefer that, I guess. You know, the average DAW you use. In my case, I'm using FL Studio. This is going to be based off FL Studio. I'm sure it's not much different between other DAWs. So what you're going to start with is your preferred sample. In my case, I have this one. And in this case, I have a full loop from start to idle to shut down. Mix and match the pieces of this audio file because you're going to need multiple. You're going to need the start of the ignition, which is this little click here. You're going to need the actual ignition loop, which is here. And then you're going to need the rollover that's afterwards because this is required. So what you're going to do, open up this sample. You're going to open it in Audio Editor. Not too sure how this would be in Ableton, but Edison's great for this. We're going to isolate the little click here for the first audio clip we need. Everything else in this audio clip can fuck off. We don't need anything else in this audio file right now. We can get rid of all this extra, and always make sure when you edit these audio files, you de-click them, because if you don't de-click them, they're just going to randomly make a clicking noise when they loop, and it's going to sound like shit. So once you've got this will be your first audio file. You're going to go to Tools, and you're going to go to Send to Playlist as an audio clip. You got your first audio file right here. This is just the click. It's only going to sound like... So once you got this click, we're now going to do the idle low-key cold balls mode. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to make this a quick rollover and call it a day because I'm fucking lazy, all right? Because we don't need the click anymore. We can get rid of the click. We don't need the rollover just yet, so this can fuck off. Remember, de-click is imperative that you de-click or it's going to sound like shit. And now we got ourselves the idle, or the loop rather, for the ignition right here. Once you got that, we're going to get the next part, or we're going to open this again. And now we're going to open an audio editor again. Duh. This time, we're going to get my favorite part. It rolling over, which is like really cool sounding, I think. I don't know. I just fucking work here. I love my grandmother so much.
I don't want to lose my...
And we'll get our new audio file here, which is it rolling over, which is this right here. Obviously, you could get more of the audio file. I prefer not to, because if you do too much and it crossfades, it might sound like shit. Now that we got that, we got 3 out of the 6 minimum files that we need. Now, I'm not too sure if you can hear me at this point, but we're gonna need to open yet another one, another in the audio editor, and we're now going to salvage the each individual idling sounds. So this area can fuck off, and let's say around here can fuck off, and we're going to de-click this, and we're going to de-click here. Obviously, you want to make sure that these actually sound right when they crossfade into each other, because they're not going to do a normal crossfade. They're going to kind of like loop after each other, if that makes sense. And we'll see whether or not this sounds right. As you can see, the crossfade worked. So this will be our first out of, let's say in this instance, 6 RPMs. Because you need to have the base RPM, which is usually at, say, for this truck, it's 800 RPM. It goes all the way up to 2500 or 2800. So I like to do it in half increments. So in the case of this, I can't be fucking asked to sample the rest of these right now for the idle RPMs. Although this would be preferred because it would sound a lot better. You can fucking crank it. Just this is what you'll do. You'll just crank the pitch and keep doing that for each increment of RPM until you've gotten it to, I guess, to the amount of RPMs you need. Obviously, depending on the vehicle, you might need more or less. Like with a normal like car, you really don't need that many. I think it's like you need 4. For trucks, you need around 5. So I've already got sound files for this setup, but we're gonna do the next part, which is sampling the shutdown, which is pretty easy. It's you try and get the shutdown to be the same volume as the idle, because otherwise it's gonna be really loud when you shut down the vehicle, and it's gonna sound like ass. So you're gonna locate where it idles around here. This is when they start idling again, and this is where they shut it off. So you're going to cut around here and tell the rest of this file to fuck off or something. I don't know. You're just gonna send it to hell, because at this point, rest of this file doesn't matter. You really don't need this tail of noise. You don't really need that. Remember, declick. You always want to declick, no matter what. Doesn't matter if it's a looping sound or if it's not a looping sound. Declick, so it doesn't sound like ass. And you want to make sure that this sounds correct. Bump it up. Make sure it's not too loud, of course. If it meshes correctly, it'll sound superb. Obviously, it's going to sound different depending on what vehicle you do. I'm doing a big-ass fuck-off truck, so it's going to be a lot more big rig-esque, I guess. So once you've gotten all these, you're going to open my favorite program ever, the Infusion Workbench Launcher. This is where the real fun begins. You're going to do this right here. You're going to open a new project. You're going to name it, just name it fuck off. I don't know. Obviously, you might want to name it something that you'll remember, because otherwise, I don't know. Right, I guess it's preference. Somebody just got shot in the background. So you're going to open the world editor. This is the greatest, most fun bit. You could do either one of two things. You can find the vehicle you want to override. Let's say, for example, we're going to take the Ural. You're either going to find the base of the vehicle, if it exists. So, for example, we've got a covered civ base, transport civ base. I'm pretty sure there's more base vehicles. So let's just say this is the base, for example. You're going to override to your main mod. This is preferred for mods like this. And then you're going to open this. You're going to go to Edit Prefab, and you're going to find we need to go to Vehicle Sound Component, and here you can see we've got Ural 4320 Engine. You're going to press this little funny button right here. And so we're gonna find this here, and I prefer to duplicate and name it to something else. Say, for example, let's say override. We'll just do override for this ACP. So as you can see, this is when the RPMs, the different RPM types, like RPM, let's say RPM 800 will be the first one. This is where each individual increments will become important. So obviously you're going to put the lowest RPM in here, and then I'll increment up to the highest, which is right here. Start out, self-explanatory. Start out is the roll out. So this is the sound it makes as the ignition rolls over. This is the little ignition click right here, the start in. And this right here is the ignition loop, where it goes. My start loop isn't going to sound like that, and I'm going to actually change the startup time so it doesn't loop, and it just does it for the same duration as the audio file. Obviously, this is the same, no fuel, engine stop. Those two, both, I usually use the same sound. This would make a different noise, but I just prefer to make them both the same. This is just the crackle noise of the metal of your engine. You don't have to bother with this. This can like fuck off this way. Everything else, not really important. This is the engine rattle sounds. This is also the engine rattle. This is for when your car is heavily damaged. This can fuck off this way. This is for when, obviously, when you're submerged, or as you can see in this bank, it's called submerged. It just makes gurgling noises. This can also fuck off this way. The only important things you have to worry about, RPMs, the start, and the stop. Everything else is optional. You don't really need to touch these. What you're going to want to do in your main, you're going to take whatever you prefer. So I don't really give a shit about my file structure because once again, I'm lazy. So you're going to put all your audio files into a preferred location. I like to put it next to where the ACP is at. This is obviously probably not good for organization, but you're just going to take all your samples here. I can't be bothered to open my file for the samples I got right now. So we're going to add all these random samples I got. Just as an example. See how I've got 400 bajillion things here? Yeah, things. And this is where the easy, fun part begins. Once you've got all these set up and they all sound nice and they mesh together, you're going to do the easiest thing ever. And you're just going to take this file and you're going to bring it over here. You're just going to drag it right on there. What? 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 Craziest thing ever, I know. Same thing here. Drag it, drag it, drag it. Fuck off, fuck off, fuck off. Did you hear it? Same thing here. Drag. Once you're done with this ACP, make sure you Control S.